That one is not very strong, by the way.
It was off. There we go. Good morning, everybody. It's 10:30. I'm Vern Tepe, Chair of the new Kane County American Rescue Plan Committee Extension. So can we have a roll call, please?
Bates. Gripe,
Here.
Gums. Leonard,
Leonard here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Strathman, Surges, Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Tepe here. We have one remote request from Ms. Molina. Any objection to her participation? Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have any public comment. So can we start with the ARP committee report?
It's on file.
It's on file. Any
Well,
questions?
yeah, it was sent out to the committee.
All right. I have a presentation that I'd like to share. Before that, can I request a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November of 2024?
Sanchez moves. Or Sanchez asked for unanimous consent.
There you
Let's just
go.
do that.
Thank you.
All right, will you be calling in? Up to you.
Yeah, form I won't.
Okay,
We've got quorum.
all right, thank you.
Remote attendance approval.
I thought we had it.
Did we?
We did. There we go. Wanted to share some of the changes that really affect ARPA now that we've gone from 2024 to 2025. So we initially received $103,413,041 in 2021. With the fact that the funds were required to be obligated by December 31st of 24. We have completed that obligation, which is a milestone. So now all of those funds need to be spent by 12/31 of 26. And there are detailed federal rules and guidelines that are frequently revised. Hopefully, now that things have settled down and we're into 25, they won't be revising them too often. All right. The ARPA committee for 2025 consists of the following 9 members, and we oversee the Kane County ARPA program. The awards process was one where all projects were thoroughly vetted. That was done by the staff, State's Attorney's Office, and Ernst & Young. And I want to emphasize that there was a tremendous amount of work and effort put in by all 3 of these key organizations. Okay, the State's Attorney's Office was extremely involved and very responsive. And all 3 of these organizations helped to make this happen and work well under Mr. Sanchez's watchful eye. Okay. Very detailed records are kept, and they're kept by our staff. So that includes the contracts, letters of commitment, IGAs, memorandum of understandings, and memos that were signed by each award process. And we passed a resolution for each award. So all of this is dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Moving forward, again, all funds have been allocated. We still need to track the payments of these awards. So all of that will be going on for at least the next 2 years. We still need to make sure that the requirements under ARPA rules are adhered to. Now, ARPA personnel consists of a manager and 3 staff people. We're currently down 1 staff person and Suzanne is going to try to work within that framework. But it might be necessary for us to come back and ask to replace that person that retired. The key things that they do, they still work closely with the state's attorney's office, finance, and Ernst & Young. They oversee and track every project, award, and ensure that all funds will be spent. Okay. They provide assistance on questions associated with the application of those funds to our county departments and external organizations. And they still receive requests for reimbursement, verify information, and process the checks for payments. All of the checks are actually processed by us, sometimes directly to the organization based upon reimbursing them, but we still process many of the checks directly to satisfy this. And keeping the records and retaining all of the information in preparation for a federal audit. We need to assume that that will happen. Okay? So what happens when an ARPA project is completed and all of its funds haven't been spent? So we have the ability to reprogram unspent funds from one contracted agreement to another. And that will be the primary purpose of this committee. And that will be the majority of things that are before us today. Any questions, or Jared, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you hit all the high level bullet points of where we've been and where we're going, which is pretty much easy sailing, I think, from here on out. Probably meet 2 or 3 times a year instead of every month, and probably be 5-minute meetings. So you're already stretching our time out, Vern.
Mr. Bright.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Blair, could you go back one screen or one slide, please?
I'll have to bring it back up.
Oh, sorry. I think it was the very last slide.
All right. Blair, what am I doing wrong?
Well, I can do it, Vern, don't worry about it. So my question is, there was a term in that last slide, I think, that reprogramming of under budgeted funds.
We can reprogram a fund from one contracted project to another contracted
Right.
project. And
But
that
what-
will be our primary job.
Okay, but it was the phrase under budgeted that I thought I said it, move them from one to under budgeted.
Yes.
Maybe I missed that.
I think the general concept is if there's a project
Unspent funds
Yeah.
is what the wording was.
Right. So I understand if funds aren't being used, they should go somewhere. We lose them. My question was that if the funds weren't all used and we're deciding to move them someplace else that doesn't have enough money to do whatever they want to do, how are we addressing where we took them from if in fact we hadn't spent everything they needed? That was what I thought I read. So does that make sense?
Let's do it.
You have it, Mr. Roth?
Project A said they need.
Please. Microphone.
$100,000 and they only use 90. That's it. They're done with their project. So we got 10,000 we're going to lose. And of course, capital projects could use more money. So we assign 10,000 to that 10,000. Because at the end of 26, we're going to have to give that money 10,000 back otherwise.
Okay.
That's all it is, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And you said then we'll reassign it. Do you have like a wish list prioritize of where, known now that here's where we're going to try to move them?
The reprogramming requires that it goes through a particular process.
Right.
And the culmination of that process will be the kind of resolution.
No,
that you
no, and I understand that, but do we have a wish list? Just assuming,
Of who gets the money?
so when the money comes, we don't have to spend a lot of time in where's it going? We have to do the voting to make it be so.
I can answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Jarrett,
Sanchez. Yeah, essentially there are large projects that can absorb pretty much any money that we throw at that, at them, like some of the building management
Well, like,
projects.
I kind of heard maybe HVAC, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There are definitely plenty of other buckets to put it in with
Right.
the final rule from the Treasury. We just had to have everything obligated, meaning contracts in place and money spent by the end of last year.
Which we did.
And now once that happens, each of those buckets have a certain amount of money that you put in there. You can move around as needed, as long as you're staying in compliance. And that's really what it's about. So all the resolutions you see on today's agenda are strictly that. It's just things that we
We
need to
already
do, stay in
know they're not
compliance.
going to spend the money, and so we're.
Yeah,
gonna leave
and
that.
also keeping in mind, we could be audited at any time. We should assume that we will be and want to be able to be ready.
Yeah.
Suzanne, all she's got to do is give them a login account and,
Right.
everything's right there and
And
it'll
I
make
fully
sense
understand
on
that.
paper. So yeah, that's really all that we're able to do at this point. There's
So that
nothing
was
else.
just my only suggestion is we should have that hit list ready to go because that's
Yeah,
one step.
And so Suzanne
already
does,
done.
staff
Okay.
does. Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Thank
Yep.
you. And I would expect that.
Yeah.
any other questions?
Ms. Juby has her hand up.
Sorry, what?
Ms. Juby, does she have her hand up?
No.
Should be online.
I don't see that.
Just the
Juby, sorry, I don't see it up front here.
No, I don't have my hand up.
Okay.
That was a Burns cursor waving at Miss Juby.
All right, new business. We have a resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds as reported to the U.S. Department of Treasury in the amount of $304,046 from the Kane County Circuit Clerk Office Microfilm Archiving ARPA project to Kane County Building Management Department's kitchen and laundry area improvements at the Kane County Justice Center ARPA project. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Strathman seconds.
been seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Leonard,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure that when we're moving funds, if a department doesn't use all of the allocated funds, that they are aware that they've satisfied their requirements and they have additional funds to move, and they're not losing any funds that they could use in another area. So my key question is not for the department that's getting the additional funds, but for the department that is relinquishing allocated funds that weren't spent. Has that been totally vetted?
I
I'm
can,
not sure how to answer the
other
formal
words,
vetted aspect, but
Let's use,
well, I
what
can,
you use-
I can answer that.
continue to track and keep track of it. That's what our staff does. So they will bring it to our attention. That's their job to do it.
that, I guess my question is, like on this first resolution, it looks great to me, but I want to make sure, not so much about the kitchen and laundry area improvements for the King County Justice
At the
Center,
clerk's office,
but for the circuit clerk's office, was she,
for a process for them to come back. Yes.
no, was she told about this and did she understand everything about it before this resolution was written? That's my question.
No, she was not.
And why was that?
Well, she's here in the audience, so we
Well,
could. ask her.
If,
That was a miscommunication aspect of things, and hopefully it's been rectified this morning.
This morning?
if I could add to that, Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Sanchez?
Essentially, like I said a few moments ago, everything that we're doing in all of these resolutions is putting money into projects so that at any time we're ready to explain the justification for every single dollar. So like with an example like this first one, there's not an outstanding contract extension at this time for that project. So we need to just move that money into something that has an open contract or an ongoing contract. And then in the event that, let's just say for this one, for example, again, that microfilm contract does get extended and we already allocated that much money to the project, then we can move that money back to that project once the contract extension is in place. And then if we get audited, it's justified. Why is that money sitting there for that project? There's a contract to back it up. If there's not a contract backing it up, then we got to put it somewhere that stays in compliance, essentially.
Ultimately,
So-
I'm not worried about the compliance.
Yeah.
What I'm worried about are our internal departments realizing what's going on and agreeing to it before we write a resolution on it. And it sounds to me like in this particular case, there was miscommunication. It supposedly has been resolved this morning.
It's been resolved this morning, but it won't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of projects going on, so sometimes conversations don't happen in the most timely of manners. But that's definitely something that we strive to improve along the way as we go, so.
You know, I have no problem with, you know, an honest.
Mr. Leonard, can you use your
miscommunication.
microphone, please?
Oh, sure. I have no problem with miscommunication or mistake. That happens. We all do that. I just want to make sure before we pass resolutions, everybody's on board with it. So that was my concern. It's not with our compliance on the ARPA money. It's with the internal agreement on departments and transferring funds and making sure they're fully aware of it and that they're in agreement to it.
Mhm.
Roth here. Just a real quick, it's a new process, so we're gonna learn and tighten up as we go, I assume, right? And constant improvement. So I would like to hear details though.
Yes. We'll hear from the circuit clerk.
Good morning,
morning.
everyone. And yes, I did find out about this, Thursday, I think, of last week. I had been texting back and forth with Jarrett the day before, but I didn't know what was really happening until the agenda came out. Now, I just, want to express my thoughts on how we were going to handle any remaining dollars. So when the normal procedures with grants are when your project is nearing the end and you have remaining dollars, then you submit an extension or reallocating the remainder of the funds to a similar project under the same guidelines. So therefore, we had not submitted anything as of yet. We had conversations with Susanna talking about this previously, but we weren't there yet because this project goes into 2026. So in fact, we have a couple skids still that haven't even been sent off to the microfilm company. The remainder, you're asking the remainder of what's owed is on this project, which I don't even know if it's the total is the first one, because there's, I think, 5 up there that have the circuit clerk's name on them. And I have to admit, it's very confusing from when I was on the county board. TM, does not match the resolution going forward. So it's very confusing. Just a little personal comment out there. It's very, very confusing to try and match everything up. This isn't just ARPA. This is just your resolutions and on your agendas in general. So my staff worked on trying to match all these up. We have used $481,843.33 to date out of the 744,000 initially. We still have an invoice that not finished yet, that's not due until March, which is $40,191. And then I believe that project should be done. We were going to ask for reallocation of the remainder of the funds going forward on another project that's all related to this, that we do have a credit with, just for full disclosure going forward. And we asked for a quote from that company because we have a credit with them already. And with our credit and what's remainder that still needs to be done, that comes to 48,964. So in all reality, what we need of this remainder is a little under 90,000. For what I have here in front of me.
So when that happens, we'll be happy to consider it.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully. Yes. Thank you.
Great.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for that clarification. I guess my concern, and this is literally my first meeting here. But from what I'm hearing is that money was allocated different places. You have some, you've used some, you may have need to extend some of that. But that option is, even though it could be reconsidered later, and this would apply to anybody, not just your department, you're going to have to come back if we do these things. The money's
Yes.
gone.
I would have to come back anyway.
Right.
Because it'd be reallocating or
Reprogram.
reprogramming.
Yeah.
I would have to come back anyway.
So here's my concern about this, is that I think these resolutions, one, two, so a bunch of them. I don't know that the committee previously decided this is where the money was going to go that was coming back from your department. And so my question would be towards Mr. Roth's comments. I don't see that a priority discussion occurred ever. And that it was just decided that give us back at least some or all the money that you have, and we're going to put it here, here, and here. I don't think that's due diligence on our part at all. And we should not pull it back yet, but say, all right, in a subsequent meeting or at this one, we can begin to determine what the priorities in the county are and use the money that way, which will give us plenty of time by the end of 26 to do it. But I think there's no rush to, even if we had it sitting in a bank account that wasn't allocated to a department, there's no rush for us to say, oh my gosh, let's do this and stick it here. So I'd love us to have a priority discussion of, okay, we've got lots of needs. Who needs it the most? And it may not be one department, maybe several departments, but that would be my goal.
Mr. Sanchez.
There's a few different things I would want to address, but I'll just try to stick to one or two. I think essentially the conversation of prioritization, I don't know that that's really a committee level conversation to have. That's the way I see it, at least, is more of a staff level conversation. And I think we need to realize we do have very confident staff between ARPA staff, finance, Ernst & Young, and the state's attorney. That's where all of these types of recommendations come from. That core group of people working as a team to follow a book that's about 500 pages long with all the rules that is attached to two other books that are just as long with rules. To come back and say, okay, this is what needs to be done when. So that concept of has there been a conversation about prioritization of where is the best place to put money? Yes, it has happened on the staff side. I think that might be a little messy if county board members have to be the ones to make those kinds of decisions. Because at the end of the day, we obligated all of those projects, so they're all open projects. And all we're doing is maintaining compliance with the money. So if there's not a contract attached to that money and we get audited today, that's going to be a problem for us. And that's all we've been trying to avoid since we established this program, is a high level of risk management and being averse to risk. So when it comes to this audit proof compliance, that's where we're coming from with activities like this. And now putting it into projects that are huge, big projects, that money's not going to be spent down anytime soon. And we know that. So if the circuit clerk's project, comes back with new contract, extension, need more money, that money goes back into that project. So again, we could have these conversations at the committee level, but it's really difficult to do that. And you're involving a lot of people who have very limited knowledge of all the details of the compliance issues. So I guess that's all I wanted to say.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Grape?
For the moment, yes.
Ms. Strathman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gripe, I understand where you're coming from. And this committee has, you said this is your first meeting here. We have been in a long process and we've done a lot of the work that has, we grinded through it like crazy, just trying to get a fairness when we could have used 3 times the amount of money to help the county and the departments and the buildings and everything. So I understand where coming in, you might not fully understand the process that we've been through the last 4 years, but there is, we have done a lot of due diligence with all of this stuff. And I think it is a time to let the staff make these are minor decisions compared to what we have been doing for the last 4 years.
Ms. Molina?
Thank you, Chairman Tuppy. Yeah, I have similar concerns. Because we allocated, I think, over 700,000 to the circuit clerk. And now I understand the concept of now putting the money into other programs just to kind of as a placeholder, but I don't understand why we haven't had these conversations with the people who we originally gave these programs to. It sounds like the circuit clerk didn't know that there was certain things that they needed to make sure they were done at this point. I'm not sure if I'm not understanding that correctly, Ms. Barrero, but I'm concerned that we're not having conversations with the departments that we've already authorized these monies to go to. I guess I'm asking Ms. Barrero, has that been a conversation that's occurred between you and our ARPA department up until today? Had this happened before? Did they tell you that you needed to make sure that you had contracts signed up to 2026 so that money remained in your department?
If I was on the witness stand, I'd have to answer you exactly the way you asked it, and I would say no. But we did have a conversation a few months ago with the ARPA, with Suzanne Fonstock, and we did, she did try to explain to us that if the money's needed for something, we had a very long conversation, but to be honest, we were kind of confused, but because we weren't done with the project. And I know she kept saying reprogram, is that the right, reprogram it? Because we're not reprogramming anything, so we didn't need to do that. So we were kind of like, okay, but we're not reprogramming anything. So we just kept going as we, the money was allocated for this project, and we just kept running with it. I do understand after talking with Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Fonstock this morning, I do understand what they're saying. I just want to make sure, and which I've been guaranteed, that the project can finish and there will be funds for it. Because what happened, I don't know what they're doing out in that hallway, but it's really bad timing. That buzzing made me lose my train of thought. When we applied for the ARPA grant, we also were applying for the modernization technology grant with the state of Illinois. So we honestly asked for the same projects because we didn't think we'd get anything. Because that's what you do. You try to get as much as you can. So what happened was 150,000 of the modernization grant went to one of the companies in here. And then the other company that took on the bigger project that was going to be more than 150,000 were doing the rest. And that's why I have now this credit with the first company. Do you understand? So I still have to use that money regardless. And we will, but that's how that all happened. And that's why we had just so much funds left over from this, was because we had 2 grants for the same project.
Mr. Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roth here. I agree with Jared. Committees should not be getting in the weeds. I think we have a very excellent director in place in the process. It needs to be fine tuned and communicated because there has been some confusion. You know, it is slightly different than grants. Grants, when it's assigned, stays in that department. ARPA has to be in an existing ARPA project because we can't start a new project at this point. Is that correct?
That's
So-
actually
Correct.
a better way of explaining it.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
But,
And it's just communication. And,
right.
you know, and we just need to have a reporting process so we have the visibility to set the committee. We should not be getting involved in the decisions. That's the staff, like you said. Communicating, so the departments or the elected officials are aware, okay, you don't have a commitment. And Mr. Gripe's comment, well, let them keep it. I would hate to have that. And then they think, oh, I can spend it and then it's gone. Because then that opens a whole nother can of
Yeah,
worms.
I hate to say this, but there's never any trust between the board and the elected.
Well, no, it's part of anything with money. It's, you know, it's the Ronald Reagan quote, trust but
Yes.
verify.
Yes. And I personally don't want to sit on the money. Yeah, because things do come up that you might need it for.
Okay. Thank you. Let's,
Thank you. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gripe.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that whenever we take unspent allocated money from one department and put it in another, if that other department has needs in the future that they could have used that money for, that they will be guaranteed that amount of money. As long as I have that assurance, I have no problem, but I need that assurance. I'm not worried about the audit or anything like that. That's what we've got Ernst & Young for. That's what we've got the financial department for. We'll be in and the Estate's Attorney's Office. We'll be in compliance on that. I just want to make sure that departments aren't having to give away money that they weren't even aware of without the assurance that they'll get it back if in fact they need it before 12/31/26.
Mr. Leonard, I am in complete agreement with you and this won't happen again.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Strathman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what Mr. Leonard said, with this exception. I'm not sure there always can be assurances. I think communication is the key to let them know, but I'm not sure that if money is left over in one bucket and needed in another bucket, that we can put it back in the first bucket. That's all I'm saying. And I think that communication, absolutely. And it was oversight. And like Mr. Ross said, we need, we're learning and we had a misstep here and we're correcting it and we'll go forward. But I'm not comfortable with saying the assurance of getting back what they've lost because it might not be there.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Have a vote, please.
Great, Pat.
Have a vote, please.
Okay.
Right?
No.
Leonard?
A conditional yes, if I can get assurance that this money will be there for the circuit clerk, if in fact she needs it before 12/31/26. Yes, conditionally.
It will be.
Okay, I get your assurances.
In writing.
All right.
Melina?
Molina, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Mr. Surges, are you there? Okay. Sanchez?
Sanchez, yes.
Steffi, yes. B, resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds as reported to the U.S. Department of Treasury in the amount of $120,100.34 from the Kane County Circuit Clerk's Office Microfilm Achieving ARPA Project to Kane County ARPA Program Administrative Cost Projection Project. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Strathman will move.
Strathman moves,
Sanchez second.
Sanchez second. Any discussion? Mr. Leonard?
Yes. Question on this resolution is, we're taking 120,000 from the circuit clerk's office that was allocated for microfilm archiving, and we're putting it into administrative cost. Is that correct?
That's where it is going.
Okay, once again, I have the same question. Do I have assurance that if this 120,000 is taken out, that the circuit clerk, if something is needed before 12/31/26, that this money will be reallocated to the circuit clerk's office?
Yes.
Sanchez here, yeah, it will be.
As long as the chairman and vice chair say yes, then
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it
hold you
just
to it.
to give you a little idea of the kind of level of detail that our program manager is tracking. Some projects come in and we know they're not going to need those funds. They're done. And they say, that's it. So that money gets pulled somewhere else and it goes to wherever else it goes. Other projects like this one are in kind of a contingent column that they may come back. And so there's going to be that ongoing conversation with projects of this nature. And there aren't many. I don't know of any others actually currently. When do you think you're going to need that money? You know, so we can have an idea when that's coming in. One thing we do have to watch, another level of detail that has to be managed, is we can't be moving water from one bucket to another, so to speak, in October of next year or November. That's so late in the game because that money needs to be spent by the end of the year. So we're going to have conversations with these offices ongoing, like, hey, just so you know, we got to get this figured out soon. Let us know which way you're going to go on this.
What is the drop dead date then on that?
I don't know that staff has set a drop dead date, but to just have that kind of little cushion of time, you know, I think the goal essentially is by the start of the fourth fiscal quarter, we'll be wrapping it. Yeah, everything should be spent by then. We might have some dollars that have to come in afterwards. You do have up until December 31st, 2026, but that's kind of nail biting if you're bringing it that
Yeah.
close. So it's the same with the obligation. We wanted to get things in well before that date, the end
Probably
date.
have
So,
a year and 3 or 4 months before we
Yeah.
need to be.
yeah, so these,
15 months before?
Well,
Yeah.
a year and 3 or 4 months. So when we need to get to probably
15, 16
July of
months, yeah.
2026,
yeah. Yeah, so projects like this are tracked.
2026.
I thought you said a year and 3 or 4 months before.
No, I said we've probably got a year and 3 or 4
Oh,
months.
okay, we have a year.
Okay.
and Okay.
Yeah,
good.
yeah, until we start getting into schedule issues.
Mr. Grape.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So from my previous interest, the comment is that, Mr. Leonard, I appreciate your goal, but I'm now fast forwarding and saying, okay, we've given the money to these other people. And now we're going to come back and say to them, oh, guess what? We want to move it back because we need to move it back. And they're like, you can't do that. You know, we've planned on this, we budgeted for this. So you may have an assurance, but I can't see it happening. Any rate, my question is for this one, the program administrative cost projection project, not the ARPA program administrative project, but a cost projection project. And I'm trying to figure out how I would spend $120,000 projecting costs.
Well, we have staff. Okay, we have costs from Ernst and Young and other costs associated with, those are the operational costs that we have. So this would be a way for us to keep track of those costs. And if there are funds available, then we can reprogram them. So that'll be up to us.
Okay, if we didn't do this, where would the money come from?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. This is a way for the money to be allocated to a project that has been approved and has gone through all the processes.
Okay, I understand, but if the project was approved, how was it approved unfunded, which before today, it would have been?
If I could
Jared, you want to
respond to that, essentially, it's something that has a contract and we could add money to that project. So it's not a project to do cost projections. It's just a project that's reflective of the cost projections for administrative costs. And sometimes those do go up more than we project. So putting money here is essentially like in case we do need to go up, we could, but also it's as far as we don't know where that's going to land, but we want to have an opportunity to reprogram the funds going into this if we need to. So this was identified as a safe project in that regard.
And thank you, Jared. And any idea of what the costs are before they get this increase?
It's just whatever the ongoing costs are currently, but that has been adjusted along the way for various purposes.
It just, to me, I'll vote no again. I'm probably the only one, but to say I need $120,000 more to be able to report costs and project costs and administer costs is not very sound, fiscally sound.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Right?
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, once again, a conditional yes with the assurance from the chairman and Mr. Sanchez that this money, if needed by the circuit clerk's office before the end of 12/31/26 with maybe a 3 to 5 month buffer beforehand, will go back. If I get those assurances, it's fine. The one thing I do want to point out here is I do believe the intent here is sincere and proper. I have no problem with that. But I want to both put Mr. Tepe and Mr. Sanchez on notice that if this money isn't there, I will hold you two responsible for it.
Fair enough.
Melina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Tepe.
Steffi, yes. Resolution C, authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds as reported to the U.S. Department of Treasury in the amount of $17,505.66 from the Kane County Circuit Clerk's Office Microfilm Archiving ARPA project to Kane County 16th Judicial Circuit Court Judicial Technology Modernization ARPA project. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Leonard
Strathman will
moves.
move.
Leonard moves, Strathman seconds. Discussion? Mr. Leonard, can we just say ditto?
Good enough for me, yes. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Gripe,
Right. No.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Melina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Tepe.
Deputy, yes. D, a resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds as reported to the U.S. Treasury in the amount of $20,818.80 from the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department's Ogden Gardens ARPA project to the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department's Drainage Cost Share Consultant and Capital ARPA project. We have a motion and second to discuss.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez
Strathman
moves.
seconds.
Strathman seconds. Any discussion?
I gotta ask.
Jody's here.
Yeah. What is a drainage cost share consultant?
That's actually our drainage cost share program. We work with unincorporated residents as well as small villages to work to resolve drainage issues within the county and flooding, specifically to protect structures and septic areas. So the next four resolutions are ours. They are within our department. Our other four projects came in slightly under budget, a de minimis amount. And our cost share drainage program that we have programmed through ARPA is $80,000 over budget with the projects we have planned. So we would appreciate the committee's support to move that money from those four projects into the drainage cost share program.
If I may, thank you. But this says,
Mr. Gray, but prior to year 2000, there was at some point, but there was no requirement for them to have HOAs. Now with HOAs, those kinds of things are typically taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's the project that she's talking about.
Yeah,
But
so-
Go ahead.
Project sounds great, but the word I'm tripping over is consultant, and it's in this one and the next one, which
Yeah,
implies
correct.
it's a
That's just,
person.
that's just the title. We have a drainage consultant, Huddleston McBride, who does a lot of the engineering and upfront field work. And with that project is also the construction side of things that are bid to contractors. So it's all kind of lumped in one total sum of currently $705,000 that we received from ARPA funding.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Gripe,
Great, no, but if I can do what Bill did, not that I'm gonna get an assurance, nothing against the program, but it's the way we went through this, so no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Melina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes. E, resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds as reported to the U.S. Department of Treasury in the amount of $5,600 from the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department Stream Gauging Network ARPA project to the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department's Drainage Cost Share Consultant and Capital ARPA project. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Leonard
Strathman will
moves.
move.
Leonard moves, Strathman seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Gripe,
Right, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Melina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes. F, a resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds. From the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Water Quality Sampling ARPA project in the amount of $58 to the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Drainage Cost Share Consultant and Capital ARPA project. May I have a motion and second to discuss? Strathman moves. Leonard seconds. Did you second, Mr. Leonard?
Sanchez.
Oh, Sanchez second. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion?
Just a
Mr. Bright?
question. This one and the next one, $58 and $27. I'm like, really? You know, is that gonna help somebody or do they need $27?
Essentially, they're all the same. It depends upon where the decimal point is.
Right, okay.
Welcome to Washington bureaucracy.
And Mr. Chairman,
That was-
I would like to commend the water department or Jody
You left.
with her accounting skills here.
Okay, roll call,
Every penny counts to quote our auditor.
roll call, please.
Gripe,
Right, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Melina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes. G, resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of state and local fiscal recovery funds from the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department's Water Conservation Education ARPA project in the amount of $27 to the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department's Drainage Cost Share Consultant and Capital ARPA project. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Strathman seconds.
Strathman seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Gripe,
Right, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Melina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes. Item H, a resolution authorizing the 2024 reprogramming of ARPA lost revenue recoupment funds in the amount of $9,800, $9,800 from the Kane County 16th Judicial Circuit Court Services Probation Victim Services and Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorist Projects to the Kane County Building Management Department's Exterior Envelope Pipe Chasement Improvement Program at the Kane County Jail ARPA project. May I have a motion and a second to discuss?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves. Mr. Leonard seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Gripe?
Just a question. I read these, and this one is a little different. Lost revenue recoupment funds appears different from the other sources we've had. Any clarification?
Mr. Sanchez?
Yeah, that lost revenue was one of the kind of mechanisms that was allowable under the state and local fiscal recovery fund, which is what we call ARPA. And so we did that in previous years. There's a formula that the United States Treasury provides, and you input your data for your particular county, and it tells you how much of lost revenue recoupment you're allowed to take. And so we did do that multiple years. And so some of that money has to just be moved out of what it was needed for previously into something else that's eligible. So.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Right.
Chairman Tepe, I had a question as well. I had my hand raised.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Felina.
Yeah, a question on this one. Was this money that was no longer needed for the original request? Or is this similar to our circuit clerk where they might still need the money at a certain point?
This one was,
don't
did
know
not
this one.
need the funds. So that's why the money's being moved.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, roll call, please.
Gripe,
Present.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes. Item I, resolution approving amendment to behavioral health system improvement grant agreements with Kids Above All.
Sanchez moves.
Strathman seconds.
Okay, discussion, please. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just don't know what this is. Could
Yeah.
someone explain it to me?
Suzanne?
Suzanne Fonstock. They're just moving an amount from their budget table from one category to another. And the state's attorney's office advised that we need to amend the resolution, the agreement, to allow them to be able to use to move the money between their.
So it's a housekeeping.
Yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
affect how much they are receiving. It's just housekeeping.
Thank you.
Which will be a big part of our job.
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Gripe,
Right? No.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes. Any old business?
Mr.
Roth?
Regarding our budgeting for E and Y, I had a concern 2 years ago, and I know we kind of painted ourselves in the corner because we didn't have enough staff, so we had to spend money with E and Y. What's the project to date expense we have, and what's budgeted for the remaining for this year at least? For E and Y?
I don't know off the top of my head, but Suzanne, if you could just follow up with us, you can send that
Yeah,
out.
and
to
that's
us.
fine. I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I just thought it was excessive because we could get a lot more affordable with staff,
Yeah.
and we were paying.
Yeah, and our utilization of Ernst and Young has gone down
Yes.
now that
which
we
is
were
good to
all
hear.
obligated. We're still using
Right.
them for certain things, but
Yeah.
especially our reporting, but
Right.
yeah.
It's kind of like we're painted in the corner and we're stuck with the decisions we made 3
Yeah.
years ago, right? So, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Any other comments? No reason for executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Sanchez moves.
Strathman seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.